Shavua Tov, and welcome everyone to our Parsha class, the Parsha of Vayikra. So we begin a new book today, the book of Vayikra, the book of Leviticus, the third book of the Torah. We had Parsha of the Pekuli last week, Chazak. We all announced Chazak, Chazak, V'nis Chazek. We will be strong and strengthened through the Torah. We know that our strength comes through the Torah, and we continue studying the Torah to gain our strength, our daily, our weekly connection of strength that we get for the week comes from the weekly Torah, weekly Torah portion. So, what I want to do today, be a little bit of a shorter class. I'm sorry for the late start. Look a little bit at the beginning of the parsha, and then look a little bit at the Megillah, because we know this week, in 1 week from today, is Purim. We'll be reading the Megillah next Sunday, Saturday night and Sunday. So to see if perhaps a theme that we find in the parsha can also be seen from the Megillah. So Leviticus. Right? Why is it called Leviticus? Because it's the book that talks about the Levites, talks about the Kohen and Levites, family of Levi, and their service, their special service in the temple. So we ended off last week with the building and the inauguration of the Mishkan, of the special tabernacle, the special home that was built in the desert, a place to serve God. And what was the primary service? There was animal sacrifices. The offerings that were brought, and they were brought on a daily basis. There were communal offerings. There were individual offerings. And right after the inauguration in last week's parsha, this week's parsha continues with God speaking to Moshe and telling him exactly these laws of these offerings. What to bring, who to bring, how to bring, when to bring, all these specifics, the details of the service of the temple, specifically with these sacrifices. This is what the parsha discusses. So I want to just read the opening verse where it opens up to talk about what the idea of these sacrifices are. So we're on page 618, 619, right at the beginning of Vayikra, of Leviticus, Parsha Vayikra, chapter 1, verse 1. Vayikra el Moshe. God called to Moshe. Vayidaber Hashem Elov, and Hashem spoke to him. May oihel moyed lemar, from within the tent of meeting, saying, right now that the tent of meeting is a reference to this Mishkan. Now that we have a Mishkan, for the very first time, God speaks to Moshe through the Mishkan. As we know that the sound, the voice of God would come to right on top of the Aron, the Ark, and the Holy of Holies, to the cherubs, to the Keruvim. And Moshe hears his voice, God's voice. What does God say in verse 2? Daber al bnei Yisrael. Speak to the children of Israel. Ve'amarta aleim, and say to them, Adam. What does Adam mean? A man, a human being. Adam. Ki yakriv miken korban lahashem. When a person, Ki yakriv, when he will bring mikem, from you, korban Hashem, an offering to Hashem. Mina behema, mina baka, mina tzoyin. It should be brought from these various animals, from your flock, domesticated animals, from cattle, or from your flock. Takrivu es karbanchem. You should bring this carbon. And then it goes on to talk about the various categories of karbanos, the various categories of these offerings. But I just want to kind of stop here for a moment, understand what does this mean? When a person, Adam, when a person would like to bring a karban, so the wording over here is very precise, and it's kind of hinting to us right at the start what is the idea of this karban, right? Because what's the point? Why does God want us to bring the animal sacrifices in the temple? It's such a reach nichoyach. God says it's a beautiful, beautiful pleasure for me to see, to watch the Jewish people bringing these offerings in the temple. What's the idea behind it? Why is it so important? So right away in the opening verse, we kind of have a hint to understand that there's obviously something more than just bringing an animal as as an offering. It's really we are bringing ourselves as an offering. Karban means to come close. We are coming closer to God. We are taking our little animal within us, and we are bringing that close to Hashem. We are elevating that. We are transforming that. The animal within us, the drive that thinks about self, our negative character traits. This is something which the little animal within us, and we have to bring a karban. We have to elevate that, bring that close to God. So in the verse right at the beginning of the parsha, it says, "Adam, a human being, ki yakriv mikem, which will bring an offering from you, karban Hashem." It doesn't say a Adam, a person from amongst you who brings a karban. It says a person that brings a karban from you. So the hint that the Torah is telling us over here is that the person is bringing a karban from who? From themselves. They bring themselves as a karban. They bring themselves as this offering, as a sacrifice, coming close to Hashem. That's the idea of the karban. So whenever a person would bring an actual karban, an actual animal sacrifice, the idea was that he or she should stand there and really have that kavanah and also do the teshuvah, the repentance, and the self inner transformation that has to happen during this process of bringing the karban. But I want to just take note again to this word Adam. In Hebrew, Adam. Adam means a man, a human being. But the truth is, it is not the most common reference to a human being. Generally, and we see this further in the Parsha as well, when we refer to a person in the Torah, we use the word ish. Ish means a man. Isha means a woman. Anoshim means plural, men or people. Nashim means women. That's usually the word we use in the Torah. Adam is a word we find here and there. Human, but it's not the most common word to use. So why do we use the word Adam right over here? So I saw something beautiful. I saw this from Rabbi Jonas and Eibschitz. And the truth is, there's a story behind it. And the story I saw in the name, different versions of the story. And I'm not sure which is the correct version. But well, the more famous version of this was with during the trial of Mendel Bayless. Are you familiar with Mendel Bayless? It's about 100 years ago, 110 years ago, in Ukraine, actually, I think it was. There was a man by the name of Mendel Bayless. He was a simple Jew. And for whatever reason, they accused him of killing a Ukrainian Christian boy. They found this boy that was killed, and they accused this Jew. And it turns out that this Jew had nothing to do with it. It was a total blood libel. It was totally made up from thin air. But they went to trial. They arrested him. They took him to trial. The trial lasted for over a year. And during the trial, Mendel Belis was a simple person from a simple small little town in Ukraine. No one really knew who he was. But because he was on trial as a Jew killing a Christian for the blood, or whatever they were saying, it became like a national Jewish case where till today, if you want to, because I was actually doing some research on the story, and in Israel, the Hatzofer newspaper, the Israeli newspaper at the time, in the early 19th, 20th century, in the 1916, those years, till today, you can go online and you can read the news. They were giving a weekly update to the trial. Think of that. We're talking about Jews in Israel and Palestine at the time, as they called it, were eager to know what was going on with the Baelish trial. There were people throughout Ukraine and Russia, throughout Europe, who were just like today, you open your phone, what's going on in Israel, what's going on, right? You want to know what's going on? People were trying to figure out what's going on with the Baelish trial. There were witnesses, there were rabbis from literally from all over Europe who were coming in to testify, to talk, to help out with this case. This became this national Jewish case. And he became famous. And thank God he actually was found innocent eventually. But during this trial, one of the things that came up was from a learned pastor, learned priest. And he says, listen, the Jewish people, they don't value non-Jewish life. They don't value non-Jewish life. And therefore, it makes sense to say that Mendel Belis would have killed this child. How do I know? It's in the scripture. It's in the Talmud. The Talmud tells us clearly that non-Jewish life is not worth anything. It's not considered a human being. We're not considered human beings according to the Torah. That's what this Christian pastor was arguing. He says, what am I basing this on? So he quoted a passage of the Talmud. Now he quoted it correctly, but he obviously totally misunderstood it. The Talmud tells us that when the Torah says the word Adam, Atem Kruyim Adam. You, the Jewish people, we refer to as Adam. But the non-Jewish people are not considered Adam. That's what the Talmud says. In other words, the word Adam, which means a human being, is a reference to the Jewish people, but the non-Jewish people, we don't use the term Adam. This is what the Talmud says. So what he understood it to mean is that Jewish people are considered a human being, and non-Jewish people are not considered a human being, and therefore, we can kill them for no reason. Obviously, total misunderstanding of the verse in the Talmud. The Talmud is saying that the word Adam, when we refer to a human being, there are three other references of how to say a human being. You say an ish, you say a gever, you say enosh, a human being. In Jewish law, when we say Adam, we refer to a Jewish person. The word Adam means a Jewish person. God forbid to say that we don't value any human life, obviously. But this is what came up in trial. So they needed someone, a very wise rabbi, to come and dispute it, right, and to give some clarification. So whoever the rabbi was, again, different opinions, different versions of the story. But one of the rabbis gets up there and says like this: Adam is a unique word. In Hebrew, we have different words. Every word could be said in singular and in plural. Ish is a man, anoshim are men. Gever is a man. Givarim are men, right? Plural. Adam means a human being. Adam means a person. But there's no way to say this in plural. There's no adamim. There's no word like that. In other words, what he's saying like this: You know what's unique about the Jewish people? The Jewish people are a Adam. We are all one singular human being. We are all one singular unit. And that's why when we refer to the Jewish people, we say Adam. He says, look at this trial. Look at this trial. There's a man, Mendel Bayless, I never met. People in Israel, people in all over Europe. We don't know who this person is. This trial became a national Jewish trial. The Ukrainian family who lost the child, which is a devastation because someone killed this child, which support are they getting? Maybe from a neighbor, maybe from a friend. But to have the entire Jewish nation stand behind a person, that's because there's a singular unit. Adam is just one. We're part of this large unit, one family. That's what's unique about the Jewish people. That's what the Talmud says. Adam, atem kruyim adam. The Jewish people, we are Adam, we are a singular unit. That's what's unique about this word. And that's what the Rabbi Eibshad says is the reason why we say Adam ki yakir mikam. You want to bring a carbon. You want to God to forgive us. You want to have this inner transformation. You have to realize you're a Adam. You're part of this one unit of the Jewish people. And what unites us? What makes us one? It's because we have one single thing in common. We have our special neshama, our special spark within us, which is the common denominator with every Jewish people. That is what unites us. That's what's unique about Adam. And to bring this over, to carry this over to the idea of the Megillah, the story of the Megillah, this is what came forward also after the time of the Megillah. Because when Haman was there to try to convince Achashverosh about this terrible decree to annihilate all the Jewish people, Achashverosh, even though he wasn't a very smart fellow, he wasn't jumping on this idea. He was hesitant. I don't know. You know, he was a student of history, and he knew that in the past, those who came and tried to crush the Jewish people, those who came and tried to destroy the Jewish people, their end wasn't pretty. And Achashverosh was nervous about this. Achashverosh says, "I don't know about this. I'm not so sure, Haman. You know, your great ideas of killing all these Jewish people, I'm not so happy about it. I don't know. It doesn't sit well with me." So there's a verse in the Megillah that says, when Haman opens up his argument to Achashverosh, he uses the words Yeshno Am Echad, which means there is this one nation. Mifuzar umeforad bein ha'amim, which is dispersed, separated, you know, all over the nations. You know, they don't live in a little pocket in Brooklyn, New York. They're all over the place. Wherever you go. We were just talking about this the other day. Wherever you go, that Jewish people. You go to the smallest little town in the middle of nowhere, you'll find someone Jewish. I spent a few weeks in the northern Germany. We were going to rural Germany. This is about 15, 20 years ago. And we were going to these towns. I mean, almost basically with any town that we came into, at least one Jew. Sometimes there's only literally one Jew living in this town. But there are Jews everywhere. You go here around Louisiana, Mississippi, you think you come to a town, oh, there's no Jews in this town. If you wait there long enough, you'll find the Jew who lives in there. There's Jews everywhere. Wherever you go, there are Jewish people. And this is what Haman's saying. The Jewish people are spread out through all the nations. And they're different. They have different laws. They're not like us. And basically, let's annihilate them, right? So on these words, Yeshno Am Echad, there is this one nation. There is like a deeper meaning as well. What was Haman hinting to over here? Haman was trying to answer Achashverosh's problem. He says, "You're nervous? Yeshno." Yeshno could also mean sleeping. Yashno, this nation that you're worried about are sleeping. What's it mean that they're sleeping? When a person is sleeping, their their uh, their mind, their heart, they're sleeping. It's not active. It's not active. The Jewish people, they're sleeping from the mitzvahs. They're sleeping from serving God. You're nervous about killing the Jewish people. That's when the Jewish people are doing right. God is happy with them. Look, the Jewish people, look where they are today. They left Israel. The temple was destroyed. Many of them are assimilated. Many of them are not even keeping, kosher. They're serving idols. I mean, they're not living up to what God really wants of them. They're sleeping. They're sleeping. So if they're sleeping, don't worry about it. But the counter argument was actually as well in Haman's words. As he said, they're sleeping, which, by the way, sleeping itself means that we're still here. We're just sleeping. It's temporary. How long can you sleep for? It's temporary. But also, what does he say? Yes, no, am echad. Now, there's this one nation. In other words, what Haman was saying, that even when they're sleeping, ultimately, am echad, the Jewish people, are one nation. And that itself was like a counter argument, which Haman didn't even realize. It's a counter argument to what Haman was saying. Haman was saying that they're sleeping, but really God says that we are one nation. We are a Adam. And that one nation, that unity that we have amongst the Jewish people. And what is the unity? It's what brings out the unity, that it's what we have in common. That neshama, the special neshama that we have with us, that is what makes us Am Echad. That is what makes us one nation. And therefore, even in the most darkest moments of the story of Purim, the moments that we're facing annihilation, and where it says in the books tell us that the Jewish people actually had a choice. See, sometimes we read the story of Purim, and there's so much more to the actual story. The story itself is an amazing story. You read it, and you read it in English, it's an amazing story. But the story behind the story is even more amazing. And one of the details of the story behind the story is that the Jewish people were faced with a choice. They didn't all have to die on Purim. They could have left their religion. If any of them would say, that's it, I am converting out. I'm not a Jew anymore. This is not who I am. You can't do it from Judaism, but from Haman's perspective, if you don't identify as a Jew anymore, if you're not living as a Jew anymore, we're not going to kill you. You know how many people took that route and converted out of the Jewish religion during that year when they were facing annihilation just to save their life? You know how many people chose that? None. Zero. Not one Jew. Not one Jew. And these are Jews, like we said, they're not the greatest righteous Jews at the time. These are Jews who went to the party. These are Jews who bowed to the idols. These are Jews who weren't necessarily living up to their Judaism. These were Jews who perhaps, if you ask them, are you Jewish? They will give you a long Megillah of an answer. I don't know. I thought today would like Jewish. Maybe I'm Jewish. Perhaps I'm Jewish. I could have been Jewish. I was born Jewish, right? It's like I don't have that Jewish identity. But then when you tell that same Jew, oh, so you're not Jewish. Oh, don't tell me I'm not Jewish. Of course I'm Jewish, right? So there's something within us that even if we don't live as a Jew, but to say that we're not Jewish, no, because that is that little spark, that Jewish spark that we have within us. And when it came to the story of Purim, it was the same thing. When it came to the story of Purim, to live as a Jew, not necessarily, unfortunately. They were sleeping. That's true. The true statement that Haman made. But Am Echad, we're always that one nation. We're always that one nation, part of God's nation. And that ultimately is really what brought about the salvation. When Hashem sees this, when God sees us how strong we are with our identity, ultimately that brought the miracle of where we were all saved. And that's the idea of Purim every year. The idea of Purim is to revisit that identity that we have that perhaps is sleeping throughout the year. Say, time to get up, time to wake up, get out of bed. Like my kids did not do this morning when they shut my alarm clock. And you got to get out of bed, right? Wake up, you're a Jew. Your neshama is calling. And that's the story of Purim. Just to conclude with this story I heard last night. I heard this from Rabbi Shakes Taub. I've heard of it before. He's a known teacher, speaker. And he said that for many years, he had a chavrusa, he had a Torah study partner with this Buddhist priest. And why was he studying with a Buddhist priest? Because he was a Jewish guy, a Jewish guy who became Buddhist, but he was a very strong believer in Buddhism. And if you had told him anything, this is who he was. If you asked him, "Are you Jewish?" He'd say, I'm a Buddhist. I'm not Jewish. This is where it's at." And he was a very religious person, and they would study in their home. And one day, Rabbi Taub tells him, "I have a video I want to show you. The video of a beautiful talk that the Rebbe gave about the subject. Perhaps we could watch this video." And this is before like people had a smartphone. Everyone just open your phone. So he said, "Okay, let's go into the next room to turn on the computer with the internet, and we'll watch the video." So the two that go into the other room, and Rabbi Taub was like wasn't really looking around the room to see what's going on there. He was just kind of the computer. They watched this video. Wow, an amazing video. And as he turns around, what does he see? He sees an actual altar with an idol on the altar that he had in his house. And for the rabbi to see this, you're like, oh, like he was totally like surprised, taken aback, and very uncomfortable. And he just wanted to like leave the room, like whatever, right? This is like textbook, idol worship. It's too much for me. So he just like didn't know what to do, didn't know what to say, right? He didn't know where to go. So he like blurted out without really thinking, "I'm sorry." So as he sees this Buddhist priest tells Rabbi Tao, as he notices that he saw this altar, he says, That's where I pray to. I pray to this altar." Now, Rabbi Tam noticed that the altar was facing east in the room. That's the direction. So he blurted out without thinking too much. He says, "Oh, so you also pray to the east like a Jew, right? You also pray to the east like a Jew, like we are, right? We all pray to the east, facing Jerusalem." So he says, "Like a Jew? I am a Jew." And he walked out of the room. And he was thinking about that. He was thinking, this person, if you would ask him, "Are you Jewish?" he wouldn't tell you, "I'm a Jew." He would say, give a long explanation to how he defines Jewish. But the moment you tell him you are like a Jew, wait, like a Jew? I am a Jew. I serve God. I serve idols, God forbid, but I'm a Jew. As in the same sentence that he's talking about the quintessential sin, you could say, that a Jewish person can do to serve an idol. 10 Commandments tell us, do not serve any idol, a physical image. I mean, but at the same time, don't tell me I'm like a Jew, I am a Jew. That's the story of Purim. That's the story of Purim. That the Jewish people were sleeping. Their Jewish identity, the connection with God wasn't the forefront. It wasn't awake, but it was still there. And the moment you ruffle the feathers, the moment Haman comes with his annihilation plan, comes to the forefront. So that's a little message for Purim, to tap in. And whichever level we're at, even, thank God we're living Jewish lives and we're proud Jews, they have a proud Jewish identity. But like they say in Yiddish, if good is good, it's better, not better. We can always enhance. We always enhance that relationship. So that's a little message for Purim. Thank you for joining us today. And next week, sorry for keeping you waiting this morning. I hope not to keep you waiting next week because we're not going to have class next week. It's Purim itself, and not that we shouldn't be studying the Torah on Purim. Of course, we should. However, it's a very busy schedule. It's a longer service, and we're not going to have Parsha class next Sunday. Thursday morning class should be on. I don't see why not. The Tanya class, the Sunday morning Parsha class. We'll take a break. Highly recommend it on your own. You study the Parsha next week, Sunday, and we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good holiday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, take care. Thank you. Thank you.